Damn. I already transitioned over. Well,
You know, if
Oh,
we
no.
keep saying that, that's gonna
We're
become a
here.
soundboard.
yeah, well,
Blast voice. Blast voice. Blast
oh my
voice.
god. Anyways, guys,
What's up, guys? Good
yeah,
evening, morning, or afternoon.
Blast voice.
Every
yeah.
one of y'all.
It's
Yeah,
gonna
that
be
too.
leap year or not leap year. It's gonna be daylight savings here in America, the only country that ever does it here.
What's that?
Anyways, we were told that they
America.
were canceling that, which was a lie. But what's not a lie right now is I do want to spend a couple of minutes here to at least commemorate and pay tribute to a passing legend, Akira Toriyama. For those that don't know or genuinely have not like followed anime for that long either, he is the original creator for Dragon Ball up until Super, and even was working on a new Dragon Ball project too, which I don't know how we're gonna continue on with that really. But on top of it all, he was also really pronounced in a lot of like gaming and stuff too, especially within the JRPG, making both Chrono Trigger and being the visionary director for Dragon Quest. So to say the least that he had an impact in the world is to undermine like how much he meant to the world. And for at least for me here, I grew up watching Dragon Ball as a kid too. So it holds a lot of place in my heart too. Like just hearing the fact that he did pass away, and Loki, I hoped it was a lie, but unfortunately so. Yeah. Fuck, I did not expect to get a little bit emotional there. Fuck. But yeah. I do hope that in this case, everyone is mourning to this legend, one shape or the other. We here at the Hotter Trash podcast will to at least pay the tribute to a legend. But
Yes.
so
Give him your energy.
yeah,
You never-
salud.
Raise your hands and gather the spirit bomb.
May he hopefully train in the high heavens with King Kai. But now, with that being said, too, I thank you all for at least listening in on this part of it, just because this is clearly important for me, as much as it's probably everyone else here, depending on how you guys consume this content. But I digress. Thank you, Akira Toriyama, for the childhood you have made for all of us.
Yes, sir. God bless.
So, all right. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive into today's topic for the night here, guys. Oh man, I don't have a good segue to like get into this, but yeah, this is probably the best. So at least for another sad news on top of that too, in 2 days from now, the U.S. is gonna pass out a law or policy. Which one was it, Victor? Was it a law?
Should be.
Okay. The new law will be passed out in 2 days that is essentially it's going to broaden the classification of a contractor contract workers to make it so that companies will have to at least treat these contract workers as full-time employees via give them W-2s, pay them like all types of insurances, worker insurances that is needed for a full-time employee, all that stuff. And we're going to be talking about at least some like the things that was said in the article. So who here wants to bring up some points reading into it? Yeah. If anything, if you don't mind, Victor, since right now we did discuss lengthy like off stream as well about this.
Yes, we did. Not sure what point to bring up first. Though the interesting thing is, I do find that their whole law is very ambiguous and very broad.
Yeah.
So let's start off with that first, because let's try to understand what this law is about, since I don't think they seem to understand what they're writing.
Yeah. So if for anyone else that is curious about this as well, it is available online too. If you're willing to spend at least a day or two trying to read through the entirety length of that document, which I unfortunately had to do. But
Yeah.
let's see here. So the best way to really figure this out is that based on the proposed rules too, it could lead like a lot of like companies worldwide to have to retroactively make some changes. Some of these changes that at least it was going to be happening here. Give me 1 second here. I had the notes written down. It's essentially like the original premises really was because there was already a pre-existing labor law that allowed for contract workers to kind of be able to freely do work as need be. And they had like their own soreless contractor, independent contractor protection clause somewhere there. But in this case, it was about to expire at some point, and this new law is supposed to more or less replace the old one. The unfortunality behind all this is pretty much what I stated before, and that it's so broad and ambiguous that it's assuming otherwise, that a lot of the companies would just be okay of like just allowing like all their contract workers, since there might be paying like a full-time wage to begin with. All they really need to put it on the top of that expense is cover for insurance and whatnot. However, they don't make the distinction between like what that is. As we all know, in America, there's multiple types of industries that people can be a part of. And in this case, this is pretty much targeting the gig economy overall, such as people that are Uber drivers, or people that in this case have a full-time job, but they also have passion with music, and they're like stage hands every now and then too, whenever there's a show that comes up, or vice versa, food delivery drivers, or other like game things in the game industry, such as contract decoders, artists, riggers. A lot of these, there's too much of it that it does not try. It's, I don't think they even try to like separate or differentiate like who's affected all this. And most importantly, what we ended up finding out too is the fact that what happens to a lot of the construction and the trucking industry as well, as most of those types of employees are usually contracted out too. No, it's safe to assume that I understand what this was trying to do was the fact that it wanted to at least provide it so that the companies would provide benefits to like these contractors the same way it would be as a full-time employee. What me and Victor have discussed, at least in the background as well, is that this could potentially cause so that companies would just retroactively not hire that many contractors to begin with, due to the fact that it's going to cut into expenses. As much as we all like to say fuck companies, the companies are trying to look out for themselves here. If it's the fact that these contractors before, they would provide their own benefits and their own insurance and plan too, that was already like okay for the companies to deal with, as most of the time these contractors will be contracted out to a contracting company, and a lot of their pay and benefits come from them. And then it comes to a different issues like, okay, so what about platforms like Upworks or Fiverrs? Where do they fall in that? The law doesn't really cover that. I'm sorry if I am talking a lot about this, but there's just a lot in this piece of law alone that says a lot, but doesn't do any clarification whatsoever, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's government for you. But that, to do a slight clarification, they do kind of say that people who independent contractors who work for themselves. So I would assume people on Fiverr and Upwork and all those stuff are actually considered or not covered by this bill
Which
or
is
this law.
which if for those cases too, they can still keep their flexibility. That's perfectly fine. But in this case, the issue comes again with like what I stated, like a little bit in between there, which is in this case, what about those that are in the construction or the trucking industry? Especially again, a lot of those guys are like the truck drivers and construction workers are definitely contractors. So imagine in this case the way how a lot of them are still having to like try to figure out what this means for them, since like as much like yeah, like under like the law itself too, Uber drivers and a lot of the people on Fiverr or Upworks, they probably will, or they won't necessarily be affected by this, but who's to say too there won't be legal actions that won't be taken until that one they had to classify these guys under these platforms. There's still a lot of things that could potentially happen still.
Like most new bills and things like that, I feel like there's going to be some sort of legal suit that will
Most
ensue
definitely.
that will clarify a lot of things.
Most definitely. And the problem is the fact that when they announced this too, there wasn't in this case enough time to comment about like what kind of like retroactive like consequences this would have to, in this case, majority of the industry nonetheless, especially to those that did not pay, or those that don't really pay attention to what a lot of the statements in the laws are. Uber drivers and everybody else is in full panic mode because essentially the gig economy is about to be destroyed by this law. And it's not in the fact that they're making it illegal, it's making it so that one, companies are forced to practically choose, do they keep the contractors? Contractors. I did say it correctly. I thought my mind was saying it wrong for whatever reason. Contractors, or do they like I have to force to again cut down on expenses once more by layoffs, which honestly does not help anybody in this regard.
For clarification, what do you mean by gig work?
Gig work, take for example, like those like what you see like people do on like Fiverr or Upworks. Instead, like they don't post their platforms on there. You can have in this case people work with contracting companies that which their whole purpose is that they go to other companies providing in this case contractors for hire. Same scenario here, but regardless too, how would this affect like those types of companies? And even then too, Fiverr and Upworks, even though these are still considered independent contractors, how does this law apply to the platform itself then, and in this case the company that runs them?
I still don't think they're affected. Because I mean, like we just clarified earlier, so these kind of contractors are not affected since they work since the people that use Upwork or Fiverr essentially work for themselves.
Yeah, and all
Now,
it really
Upwork
is
is not
just a platform.
they're not working for Upwork, so that's the distinction here.
Yeah,
Because when Uber drivers, they work for Uber. That's how they drive for Uber. But on
Yeah.
Upwork, you don't work for Upwork. You just put your profile out there, and then companies can then contract you out to do jobs.
yeah. So regardless, it might be as simple as that. But then again, it's also the case of, with that being said, if a company were to still hire that contractor per se, they would still have to treat them now as a full-time employee, giving them W-2 benefits and others as well, regardless.
Yes, that's where the language gets odd.
Yeah, because in this case, at what point then will it just outright just screw over a lot of these gig workers then? In this case, that is also the definition I'm trying to get to you, Michael, is that gig worker is essentially those that do like small tasks, jobs at the side, whether they are working a regular job and they are doing like gig work at the side to either because that's like the type of hobby or the type of things they still want to be a part of, but they know that they need the current job to still pay for all the other expenses. But they
Well,
will
the
still,
gig job,
yeah.
the gig job then sounds like it's independent contractor, which therefore would not fall underneath the law.
It wouldn't have to be, but to the company's eyes, it still has to be labeled as such anyways. They would still have to file that, and in accordance to that, they would still have to give, still benefits. That's the thing here. It's the fact that they don't make the distinction. Because even though they are independent contractor, once they contracted out to a company, they are therefore part of the company's roster of employees now. That's where things get very dicey for them. And effectively, it's going to look even bad too. Like, let's just say, for example, like they don't make that distinction. And as soon as you're contracted out for a company to do like gig work as well, that company has to recognize you as a full-time employee, even though you're just a contractor. And what happens to that person's primary job?
Wouldn't they just recognize you as an independent contractor that they've hired?
Like I said, is how would you make that distinction? Apparently, to this law.
The law
Yeah.
states there were what? It was like the 6 economic realities.
I think what Brian's trying to get at is if the whole point of this was they're targeting gig workers to become essentially full-time employees. So what's different between a company hiring out an independent contractor and working for them?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at with that. Because you are bound to gonna get like type of scenarios where that's going to be the case, and it's just going to be as confusing for the company overall. And if anything, all this is really promoting to the company is that they're going to be less likely to hire out contractors to begin with, which is obviously going to affect everybody regardless. Even like to the small cases too, or I would say small cases because there are definitely people that are working these types of gig work where they will for sure not be affected by this law, but it is still potentially industry breaking based on who you're looking at. Because again, there's not a really good way to like help differentiate it. It's so broad and open to interpretation to the company that they themselves won't even understand the full effects of this law. And next thing you know, they're getting fined by the federal government saying that, hey, this contractor that you have on you, you're not paying benefits for. And they're just like, wait, what? It's just a lot of that nonsense about to go around. That is effectively what's going to happen to them. And if anything, if it's already bad enough that there's already tech layoffs too, this is probably going to I will at least project that this is going to make it worse.
I believe it.
I definitely think
it worse. I think the law needs to be a lot more clear. Like that's their problem. They're not making it clear, and their attempt at making it clear, which is an article that I sent to us for it before, is that I think it makes things even less clear now.
Yeah. Like, because here at least were the two core factors about how the law was originally trying to classify if they are a contractor versus an employee. Number one, the nature and degree of the worker's control over the work, which in most cases, if they're an independent contractor, then they're a contractor, then they wouldn't have to file for this. In this case, the worker's opportunity for profit or loss based on initiative and or investment. That one is a little bit confusing for me, but I'm assuming it's like if they are getting paid out by like other, like in this case, a contracting company itself. I think that's what I'm getting from this. It's a lot more confusing the more like you try to apply these two labels, these two classifications to every contractor that's out there. Not all of them are going to be behaving the same because we don't know how they're contracted out to begin with, what their contracts look like, as in the sense of the name itself. Like I'm getting to that like they're trying to also standardize like the whole labeling of contractors because at some point it got to a ridiculous point where if most of your life too that you were just doing like Uber driving and whatnot too and you're making income based off of that, it's also the weirdness of like how would you technically tax this, because for Uber driver you are in this case considered a contractor, but at the same time you also in this case work for Uber entirely. So there's some way that you're also in their payroll somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it gets even, because once that classification is there, then Uber will have to still view them as like full-time employees based on the vagueness of this law. Just because even though, yes, the Uber drivers themselves, they are still considered independent contractors, they probably will not get affected by that. It still doesn't really clear the distinction if that is still the case. Like, if anything, I hope it doesn't like classify them as such, because a lot of Uber drivers and Lyft drivers are about to become jobless again.
Yeah.
But again, we don't know like what the whole like way how they're trying to enforce this, because this makes no sense of like what it's trying to do. Like, and also like imagine like auditors that have to like look into these companies too, and it's just like all these fines that are going to be happening to these companies.
Mm,
Like
no.
in this case for you, Loy, because like based on like what you say too, would you also think that, because I know you did Uber like ride sharing and Uber food deliveries at
Yes,
some point in
yes, sir.
time too. This case for you, like what is your take about this? I'm only asking you for, you're the closest experience of being the Uber driver here. I was close to that.
Like, I want, like, what do you want to, like, specifically know?
so
Let's say that.
so let's say for example that the law goes through unchallenged too. Would you say to yourself too, like, could you see the potential that like you can start getting benefits, but then there's a higher chance of like Uber just straight up like laying off a big majority of their workforce now?
I I think before they even lay people off, people will just go ahead and resign. Because the
How
whole
so?
idea behind Uber itself, me personally, is the flexibility and how much we can earn in a short amount of time. Because it's quick money. It's
Yeah.
like we just want like quick cash, quick cash. Like, maybe 2 3 hours we get like, 50, maybe even $60, and that's all we need. Like maybe we just want to afford, a little snack or a dinner just to afford for that day. But that's only in some cases. But
Right.
for people that are gonna do this full time, they have to account for their own time, their own gas, their own maintenance on their car. So it's before anything else, they're gonna quit. I don't think anybody's gonna, you know, be hired here and just be laid off because there wouldn't be a fucking workforce. In all honesty, unless they want the benefits and like they really need it, then that's where I would see people would
Mm-hmm.
gravitate towards, like
Mm.
actually being employed under Uber and not being the
Yeah.
independent contractor that they once were.
Yeah. So in this case, for your reasoning too, the law itself would essentially kill like the whole flexibility appeal, being a independent contractor.
Yeah, so that's one of the biggest pros of being in the gig economy is the flexibility and the ability to work, for yourself. Essentially, you don't
Yeah.
have an employer. Technically, you do, but they're not like like fucking like watching over you like a fucking hawk and it's like, hey, do this and do that. They kind of just Uber provides you with you know a place to make money. All you
Mhm.
need is a car, your insurance, and your license. And
Yeah.
they sometimes send out quests, so which is like basically your incentives. It's like, oh, let's say I get 10 rides, for
Mhm.
today, and I get like an extra 10 $20 because I completed that goal. That's
Okay.
what they do to supplement um like all that, all the
And it's
driving
also
or
a way
whatever
how they
shit.
want to retain a lot of like Uber drivers to begin with.
Yeah, like for me, that's what did keep me going for like the good month or two that I did, because like every other week I would see like a goal. I was like,
Mm.
huh, I kind of want to set this goal and do it. Yes, I know like that my gas is gonna like kill me because that's like one of the underlying things is like gas will kill you.
Yeah.
It's so much money, but the payoff is that incentive. So like I remember they give you a time period. Let's say 1 month, a month and a half. You complete like 100 orders or 100 like lift share like shares like ride
Hmm.
shares.
Yeah.
Then they give you like $100 or 90 or some sort. But you can also there's also goals to where it's like like lower increments. So instead of like 100, you could probably set like 80 or 90. Like like the like the bonus payoff is lower, but you still get the same satisfaction, and it's better for
Hmm.
maybe it's better for you personally. Like maybe somebody wants to go, get that money, like go get that 100,
Hmm.
rides, and but that's just personally how they want to do it,
Right.
and that's the appeal. That
Hmm.
that's what I'm trying to get to. It's the appeal. Like, oh, there's incentives. It's
Hmm.
basically, let's say you were in a company, right?
Yeah.
And your company sets in like a goal. Like if you meet this goal, you get like a raise or something. So it's, it gives you motivation. There's an incentive out of it, like with all your hard work that you put into it. So it's basically the same idea with that gig economy. It's like
Right.
setting goals for like certain, like getting this certain amount done, then getting like a bonus.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so the more interesting that you mentioned too was like the fact that they do pay some type of incentive to like drivers to like try to get them to work a bit more, or they in this case retain them longer.
Mhm.
So if anything, I'm gonna go for a broad definition then. Would that still technically be considered them like kind of just the company itself paying the contractor then to like keep working for them? Effectively, like in a sense, what I'm trying to get at here is this like another variation of like a wage that they're giving these Uber drivers?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily a wage. It's more of
Mm.
just motivation, I guess, and more incentive to work with them. Because you can
Mm.
choose not to like work at all. Like you can go like a week or 2 weeks and not,
Yeah.
get paid, because it is, based on how much you get done. The amount of work
Mhm.
you put in is the how much money you're gonna get out of it. Basically,
Yeah.
it's like that's
Yeah.
what it equates to.
Yeah. If
I wouldn't
anything,
say
like,
it's like wage. Yeah.
like if anything, Victor, you see, or you too, Michael, you see why I was trying to go for that one, at least the way how like, at least to me, it sounded interesting enough that I, for one, did not actually know that Uber does do that, which is interesting case to be had here, and a lot of more interesting that a lot of times who knows what type of like government that's going to like use that, if in this case that like incentive service as a way to justify for like, hey, because you're already paying like these Uber drivers like a certain amount of money just to do like a few more rides, wouldn't this still technically that you are giving them a wage then to try to promote them to do more work for you? That's also what I'm trying to get at. This is where the language itself starts to get muddy. Maybe I'm also overlooking this too, and it could just be the way how like companies do like bonuses, essentially.
Yeah, essentially that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's just a bonus.
So in this case for you, Victor, where would this fall under, and with that type of interpretation then?
That'll be hard to say, hard to determine. Um, uh,
Just like give your thoughts on it. No, nothing concrete. Just like
yeah.
something
I think.
broad.
Because
Well, they
like it
definitely
is
wouldn't be an
interesting.
independent. They definitely aren't an independent contractor. That's for sure.
Yeah.
They are still a worker of Uber by every definition.
Yeah.
The only
Which
difference here is that the Uber driver is able to choose their own schedule to work. That's the only difference here between. Yeah, that's the only difference here
which
between a
in
normal
most
worker and an Uber driver.
and if anything too, the clauses don't itself doesn't really say that for an independent contractor that they could just set up their own hours. That's not part of the classification of it either.
But I think it's implied that as an independent contractor, you are your own boss. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Yeah. Now, this is us still like really much speculating that maybe there's like a lot of things that can be proven against this law too. There some things are not like totally destroyed here. But based on the way how this was written entirely, we can't really rule this off the table of like they could potentially be targeted here. As much as like, even though the classifications of these drivers itself, yes, they still fulfill the independent contractor labels. But who's to say the ones who made that wanted to have that distinction?
well, actually, the drivers fall more under the worker classification.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, the only difference between them and a normal worker is just being able to choose the amount of time they work, their schedule.
Yeah. And in this case too, like would in this case Uber be incentivized to still, in this case, under this new law, they will have to pay all these Uber drivers like an incentive to like give them like health insurances and life insurances and whatnot.
Of course, they can do it. And the unfortunate thing is, since most of these people who work for Uber are very short term, like Loy,
Yeah.
who did it for like a few months. How long did you do it for?
In 2023 for a month and a half, I believe. I started in
Yeah.
January, finished around mid-February or late
Mhm.
February.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not that
My
long
thing
too.
is, so how would giving them benefits work? Because Loy only worked for like a month out of the year.
Yeah.
So for people who work short term like that, it doesn't make sense to give them benefits. I mean, they're literally there just to work like a month and then probably like a couple hours out of the day, not like every day either.
Yeah, that's like that's what I was assuming. What this law was supposed to be designed around was the fact that they wanted to provide protection for like these Uber drivers, but at the same time, the vagueness of it and also the nature of their work makes it almost impossible to try to implement.
It is. It is absolutely impossible. I mean, why would you give someone who works literally a month out of the year benefits for the whole year?
Yeah, and
And you can't just give them benefits for 1 month. I mean, that's just a lot of administrative work Uber has to do on their end, and that's gonna like drive up costs too.
like if it's like effectively, no matter what's going to happen here, too, something is going to increase, and it's not in this case the amount of people getting benefits.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Like in this case, Michael, like hearing us talk about this right now, what is your take with this now? Or do you still stick with the opinion that like it shouldn't affect it, but you can see like other things happening, or still?
Well, I definitely see a lot of people losing work over this. I just don't believe that Uber, Lyft, and things like that are going to fall under this criteria.
Yeah. If anything, that's in this case what I'm also hoping as well as a best case scenario for them too, because again, there's probably a reason why like multitude of times too people are working these jobs to begin with. Not for the fact that this is what they want to do, but like the nature of it, it's gig work. Depending on how you look at it, you're
Yeah,
either
but true.
or. Yeah.
One quick thing, but if it doesn't apply to Uber or Lyft, then who does it really apply to? Is now my
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, because like again, there's no other way to really differentiate this. Because now I'm looking at, in this case, what about a lot of these contracting companies now too? Let's take for example the gaming industry. That alone has like a lot of like usages of, or they have a lot of utilization of contract workers in all aspects of game development. Then, like let's say for example 343 Studios, they contracted out the people to make their game engine, which in the long term was probably the most dumbest idea that they have ever done.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
But yeah, no,
during
I'm also curious on who this is going to apply to. I can't think of anyone else. Well, I can think of a few, but I feel like they're already covered by their own company, typically.
yeah, and who's to also say too that again, every state that any of these contracting companies are native to, that they would in this case have any laws that enforces on these contract companies that they have to provide like benefits to them, or if it's as strict as if they're not a W2 style like workforce, they are not obligated to, the companies are not obligated to provide like health insurance to them. There's a lot of things that again, that this law itself is making a broad statement that assuming otherwise, if the state doesn't have it, it now has it, or they now have to do it anyways because it's now federal law. Who's to say, like, again, with like the companies that do it, would that mean that in this case, based on the language too, would that state that already enforces that initially, would they have to double down on that shit or double it, pass it to the next person type scenario? Obviously, probably not the former or the latter, that just because I do think it's kind of dumb, but still, it's making a lot of broad sweep statements that I myself do not like in this language alone.
Mm.
Like you would expect at least for the law to become more like concrete and be able to clearly tell you who this is for, but there's so many of vagueness to this. Such as the
Yeah,
fact too
that's a
that like
lot. That's a lot of like laws that Congress have that the government has passed already. So it's it's nothing
yeah.
new. I think they'll eventually be able to figure out who this is really for, or at least they'll be able to revise the law to actually mean what they wanted it to mean in the beginning. But
But at
yeah,
the
as
same
of right
time,
now, it's very very
yeah.
hard to understand.
Yeah, because they announced this back in January and it's about to be like, you know, about to be rolled out in 2 days from now. If anything, that means companies only had at least like a month and a half to at least review over and try to figure out like how much of a damage this would do to them. Which, if anything, by a lot of company standards, that's not a lot of time. Despite the fact thinking like for us too, oh, it's like 3 months. Yeah, we could probably figure it out if that's the only thing that you're focused on.
Yeah, true. These people don't handle like thousands of workers or millions in the case of Uber.
Yeah. And again, there's a lot of things too that like a lot of it again for contracting companies. They themselves probably have to label a lot of their contractors as full-time employees now. And this is probably going to hurt a lot in the contracting pool or those that are already like a contractor but not consider an independent contractor. So in this case, where would they fall between that too? Because they also play a big part of a industry of the US industry to begin with. If not just like Uber, I believe there was like a statistic around like 5 million people that are working gig work jobs here in America. Something like that. Or it could be more. I don't know. There's as much as like I want to see that there might be some ways to like clarify that too. Reading it again, thank you. Actually, I lie. I was now gonna read that shit again. It's like, look, again, you guys can look this up online and you are more than welcome to read it, but that shit is like to the point where the scroll bar itself is like a centimeter long.
Not even.
That's fucking crazy.
It's
Yeah.
about 3 pixels at most.
Yeah, and that's how fucking infuriating this is. The law content itself is so much, but it said nothing. Like,
Yes,
what
sir.
is this?
It's a lot of words, but zero meaning.
Yeah, it's like, who fucking wrote this?
That's the government for you.
Yeah. Anyways, I didn't
That's
want to
the
get,
American government for y'all for those international viewers.
Yeah, I honestly don't want to like our podcast to be like too political here, but this is obviously it's going to affect a lot of people and affect a lot of like our normal everyday life to begin with. Think of the farm hands, for example. They are still considered like, yeah, think about all the farming industry or agriculture industry, especially those that are contracted out farmers or other farm hands. Yeah, imagine that too. They are now going to be forcing like agriculture like workers. In this case, imagine like Tyson, for example, with a lot of their meat packing plants. I won't go into like how unethical a lot of their hiring practices are, but maybe not Tyson, but think of like let's say for example, like what is a bigger agriculture company name that's on the markets now? I can't think of one on the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't actually know too much.
So let's take, for example, like your baskets of berries that you see a lot in the stores. Imagine the price of that now having to go up by like $5 or $6 more per box now because of the fact too that these farmers, or at least the companies that own these farms now, they're going to have to treat a lot of their farming contractors now as full-time employees, which is obviously to those contractors that might be good, but this is also like bad for them as well too, because now it means that they are now on the chopping block of like who actually stays on. And this is also going to reduce the productivity overall, which is also going to once again fuck everything up.
I'm more and more convinced that our government is making life harder for the average individual for some reason.
100%.
There's gotta be an end goal because
I don't think they know that end goal.
That's all it is.
Like, if anything, Here's a problem here, Michael. You're assuming otherwise, that the end goal is something that the government is competent enough of seeing the end goal.
I assume that they have an idea, an end goal in mind, and they try to reach it by any means necessary, even when like burning everything along the way.
Well, if anything,
I want to know what their end goal is, because we're all getting burned along the way.
Here's the thing. It would be great if there was one, but I feel like the actual fear factor is there isn't one.
No, there definitely is, but we just don't know it.
It's like, that's the copium talk here, Michael.
No.
You know damn well, like, the people that make these people, our fucking own government is like its own geriatric retirement home.
Oh my god.
You see a video footage of or you watch any press of the union, or like the union speeches that happen by the President Biden and whatnot. You see all the congressmen and senators that are in there. Everyone is over the age of 69, 70, whatever.
Honestly,
the fuck.
I don't know if I trust any new generational congressmen or women to go in there and be any better. Let me be honest with you.
Well, guess what, Michael? The old ones aren't doing jack shit either.
Yeah, no, I don't trust anyone. All right. Fundamentally, like, they are not doing anything because it's gridlocked, and if the next generation gets in, we're all doomed.
So regardless whatsoever, what's the real choice here, Michael?
Sounds like we're just slowly collapsing.
Anyways.
Yes, this country is collapsing.
Anyways, that was a bit of a tangent point here. Let's try to go back to what we were trying to talk about initially.
Indeed.
Tangent, but relevant.
Yeah,
that's what this government is doing with these bills.
Yeah, because obviously I don't understand what this is supposed to be for. Because even then with the video game, like a lot of like modern tech like industries too, they at least go through like a contracting company, which does at least, that contracting company does have a responsibility of covering or paying for these contractors then, right? In this case, they are no longer considered independent contractors, as they are now employees for a contracting firm. Now, I have no idea what it is going to in, like, let's say agriculture, mining, textile, a lot of like the basic core fundamentals of our industry here. Hell, I even still say trucking as part of like this as well too. Imagine how bad logistically it's going to be now. Once in this case, companies are forced to have to lay off people because they cannot make ends meet. And they have to fulfill deadlines too. Like, yeah, that's why, like, at least in this case, what we said, it feels relevant to discuss, like, what it feels like right now too, is that the government itself doesn't feel like it's aware of, like, what type of issues this is causing down the line too. And I'm thinking about this, like, what is the point of advisors in the fucking government then, if they're not doing the job of advising these people of like, hey, this is a bad idea?
Yeah, you're a bad idea.
Hey, this whole thing, this whole law itself is a bad idea. Why did nobody try to shoot this down? Then again, I get it. Well, actually, no, I do get why. They were trying to, in this case, try to repeal, or in this case, cover over a law that was about to expire in the first place. But this one is no better. If anything, it's by far even worse. Somehow it's worse.
What law was about to expire?
It was like, in this case, whatever, like Trump, during like Trump's presidency, that he rolled out a policy that in this case empowered a lot of contracting works and a lot of gig works to be able to, essentially it functioned as if like they can still work just as normal, and they would get like protection clauses as if they're like part of like labor like workers without having to be filed as W-2 workers.
Did it work fine?
For the time being, it seemed like it.
Why didn't they just renew it?
Because that's not what the agenda is for. That's not what they are trying to do. They don't want to keep Trump's old agendas.
Well, the one they replaced it with is far worse.
That's not to them. For them, they're replacing something. Concern.
They just don't want anything involving Trump. But this is starting to get political. It's okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Once again, burning everything along the way to get back at some people.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, guys. But yes, outside of like the whole political talk, too, it did not matter regardless. They wanted to replace it regardless. They weren't trying to renew it. Because obviously, there's like, at least for their concern, they also wanted so that once you have these gig workers be able to be like, I don't know, be able to get paid like a lot of these salaries, and in this case, a lot of these benefits, that gave them more reasons for them that there's more taxable income off of these contractors now. So,
You know what? I, for one, am interested to see how everything will fall apart.
oh man, we already see that too. There's going to be a lot of people that are just going to straight up like, yeah, no, we're not going to deal with this no more. And it's already like either people are going to leave or there's going to be a massive layoff wave again while in a recession.
I'm at the point in my life where I'm just ready to see the chaos.
I was like, pull out your lawn chairs, get the popcorn ready. Yeah, things are about to go fucking sideways, left, right, and everyone's going to be looking at this upside down. There, God, I really do wish that, like, again, this isn't the case here. I'm only mad about the fact that, again, there's so much of nothing in this law policy. It doesn't do anything to, like, provide, like, good examples of, like, what they mean when they're trying to roll this implement or law out. Hopefully I am explaining to the viewers here what this is too, because if not, I'm really sorry too, but there's just so much happening in this piece of paper alone that
Yes, sir.
I don't even know where to really begin from this shit. Just because, like, we're just starting in this case, we're just throwing like darts in the fucking paper of what to talk about, and it's mostly we're picking holes at it. There's a lot of holes there. It can't even consider Swiss cheese because there's so many holes in there. It's more like a fishnet. Like, this is how bad this law itself is looking like right now, too. Outside of the fact that, yeah, sure, Uber drivers themselves are potentially like they can avoid like the potential fallout what this is going to cause. What's going to still stop somebody to still try to push this onto Uber regardless? There's still going to be some insane group of people that are still going to try to say like, no, we need you to enforce this because this is what it's meant for. But under your own poorly written law too, that's what I'm going to assume here. It's at this point it's poorly written. There's no room for interpretation for this. Or if anything, the room for interpretation is so vast and many too that it's all bad.
Yes, sir.
And like what Victor said too, this would cause in this case increased cost of administrative work for like these contractors or like the companies that have to like manage these contractors. Just because how the fuck are you going to imagine that in this case the Uber driver that gets benefits, but they're only working there for a month? And if anything, you're going to need more people to just do that. And to the company, that's wasting even more money.
Absolutely.
Now, it seems very like we're probably 4 companies too that like want to do all these things too. However, we still believe it is still the company's choice and whatsoever if they want to make or lose money. However, this is making everybody lose money.
Yeah, because the whole point, like Loy, his whole point was just to make a little bit of money. His plan wasn't to work a long term for Uber. So there's a lot of people that are like that.
Yeah. And that's like what this law is trying to assume, that these contractors, they're like working more or less full time. What's that? That's not the nature of the work. The gig work economy, especially like imagine those that work for like trying to set up concerts too. Imagine how often, like, let's say now concerts are going to be like rolled out now because of the fact that whoever is like the concert or like the concert like event maker now has to look hard into like these independent contractors and be like, well, shit, we got to make sure that we pay everybody the wage, but we probably won't be able to, let's say, go to these specific areas or cities just because it's probably we're not going to make a lot of money off of this. That's also the thing that what might happen too, potentially with Uber. If they were had to follow through with the fact that they're gonna potentially provide like insurance and whatnot too, they're gonna make sure that their Uber drivers are only gonna be working around their quote unquote safer areas of the city, essentially blacklisting out every other section that would need like a ride sharing service. Like what's currently happening before, like I believe like Target and no wait, no, In-N-Out having to close their fucking store at Oakland just because the crime rate was so massive and so high too that they realistically could not see like continuing to put money into that location.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be the same thing that's going to happen to Uber. They're not going to just provide services now to like everywhere. They're going to be providing it to like a much more like safer areas. That is in this case what a lot of people, or at least something that I thought was like a potential like backlash of what this is going to cause. And like again, we just hope for the fact that someone is going to step up and say like, please fucking repeal this. This is fucking garbage. Like, how the fuck are you going to give us a 200-page of a piece of legislature of law here that doesn't explain what the intent of this law is? How is this possible?
I don't know, Mr. Bowie.
I feel like this itself needs to be put under like a researching or like a lecture of like what not to do.
Sir.
For any political science majors, I guess. I don't know. I'm not one of this. Thank God I wasn't, because I will fucking start having like aneurysms every day. I'm already developing one right now after reading all this shit.
Well, we need to help you.
Oh God. Sometimes whacking one off was not the best idea either.
What are you
True.
going on about?
They can only do
No.
so much.
I feel that.
Yeah. But like I said too, I don't know how else to really try to describe like the current mess that this is going to cause. Whether or not to, if it's affecting the Uber drivers or not, this is potentially affecting somebody out there. And it's also going to be like a big factor too, just because the way how it's worded. We're going to keep repeating that too, just because of like, this is how bad it is. You could pick at any point in this law too, and it won't matter if you try to find a good point. There is no good point in this law. Outside of the fact that, sure, companies should be able to provide like in this case, insurance or like health plans for like their contract workers as well. But again, that's not the nature of it. It's really hard to grasp too, because like again, this law feels like it's out of touch of like what it means right nowadays in the industry, what a contract worker is, versus probably what it was like maybe in the 80s. That's what it feels like when I read this shit. It's like it doesn't like feel like it's supposed to like cover anything that's going on nowadays either, because you still have in this case Uber drivers that can still file under like independent contractors, and game companies itself too, they're already like contracting out like contracting firms to do this. So if anything, the last like denominator about this would have to be like farmers or the agriculture industry, even like the very manual labor industry as well. Like how bad would that affect those companies now too? Like already we already see like a cost of raw goods going up too. This would just make it even worse. I'm gonna say it too. I don't want to pay for a lot. I don't want to pay a lot for groceries. I'll even state that too. As much as like I want to say like just give me the cost or give me the price of how much it actually is, but realistically, the way how these companies already roll out too, I don't want that to happen. Just because of the fact that there's only a select few like agriculture companies that are willing to do this, unless you want to go to farmers market, and even then they would probably still upcharge you because that's still their manual labor.
Sir.
So regardless whatsoever, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I
this
just don't know.
this whole law is just so dumb, bro.
It's like it's one of those things
I
that
don't even know how to think, to be honest.
I agree.
this is
Things are hard.
also the first time like we ever read law in this case too. Preferably, we probably would want someone that's has like a political science major to talk about this because they probably have more insight knowledge on how this is supposed to work versus our dumbass interpretation of how that goes. But even as a normal person too, this is available to the public. Anybody could read this. How the fuck is anybody supposed to understand this shit? And obviously, it's that's why it feels like I don't know who's this is supposed to be for. Yeah.
I just don't know.
Yeah. Because like imagine right now, like a lot of startups right now too, like you are also going to be banking on the fact too that like you're probably going to hire like contractors or an independent contractor works to like help you go here. But in this case, how much money would that even cost now to try to bring them on? And how much more willing do you want like us as citizens here at the end of the day, how much more are we willing to give money to these companies to the point where like this is fucking ridiculous? I don't get paid enough for this shit.
Truly.
Yeah. I'm only saying too that like again, I'm also looking at it in the form of like the housing market as well too. Like a lot of the builders are definitely contractors here. It's already bad enough too that like you had like some states too that are prohibiting a lot of like immigrants to work as like contract builders in a lot of states too. Now this just makes it so that like, this is gonna create some very weird clause. Like imagine if the majority of your contractors working a house too, they're all immigrants. What the fuck do you do then? They don't technically have a US citizenship.
Who knows?
Like
Yeah, I didn't even think about the housing market attached to this.
yeah, like this has the contracting and gig work economy is very flexible. That is the great nature in all of this, is that it enables a person to be able to flexibly work in different industries. But my only problem with that too is that like imagine you're working like full-time at one job too, but then you have like a contract work for another one and you're treating as a gig worker for this one. Depending on how this law is like interpreted and rolled out too, they are going to have to classify you as a full-time employee for this other company now. And who's to say that the original company would see what you're doing and it's like you're now considered a full-time employee for this other company. Why should we pay you anything? And you will potentially lose your job for this shit. There's a whole lot of ramifications that this has that a lot of people are probably too scared, or in this case, rightfully scared of like what this could mean if this is not interpreted correctly.
They are meant to protect. They're meant to protect contractors, but in reality, they just put them in the crosshairs for some hard times.
Yeah, and it's just like we're here to help you. Help us how? You put us in front of a target. This is essentially what is going on here. You put us out here. What do you mean?
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know.
Like, let's say, for example, too, like, let's take your brother, for example, because he's training right now to become a welder, right? At least I won't name him direct, or like your brother too. I can't remember if he was doing like trade school stuff because I remember you mentioned him once.
He was not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Who are you talking about?
Sorry, my schizo is like hitting me right now. My bad, guys.
What?
My schizophrenia.
Shut the
Must
fuck
be
up.
must be a different Michael.
Yeah,
Must be.
No, my brother. The only work that my brother has done factory related is deburring. He has never done welding.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. That was something that I probably got confused at some point. My bad.
Definitely got confused.
Oopsies. But I digress the point too. Let's go back again a bit further. Michael, let's say, for example, that you're working with whatever company you're at too. And imagine in the case too that you want to make a like extra bit of money as well, just because in these trying times, you're going to need that extra money anyways, right?
No.
Okay, well, Let's say yes for this fucking example, all right?
Good.
You motherfuckers. Just say yes for this example alone. So imagine like that's the case too. It wouldn't be like you would find a gig work too where you're working for this other person or this company at the side and you're just doing something small, right? Maybe all you're really doing is just like refilling like copy machines, or you're doing like other stuff like menial tasks that doesn't really take a toll on you, but it's like obviously it's easy and you get paid like maybe not that much money, but that's probably because that's the nature of it and it's probably something that you don't really expect. It's just a supplement.
Yeah. I would really be wondering what company is hiring an independent contractor to refill their coffee machines.
Now, like I said, this is a terrible example already. Let me preface that. This is already a terrible example.
They're
but
not
let's
going to
say
have Joe down from accounting just go ahead and do it. They're going to have some contractor come in and like grind their beans up for them.
Look, there's a lot of tech companies that already do dumb decisions. It won't surprise me either way. So
I feel
let's say for example that was the case too, but then this law hits out too. Now in this case, the company that you're working on right now, okay, so I'm double dipping on benefits now because they are now having to do this for everybody, every other contract worker that works for this company. But then word gets back to your other company that you're working for, says, hey, what the hell is this? I see that in this case you have like another insurance plan with another company. Are you in this case having a double job here and double dipping on money? A lot of companies won't sit by that either, a lot of times.
Well, you could just deny the benefits, the health benefits, and then therefore they would never know.
Yeah, but the law doesn't really state otherwise. If the independent contractor has the option to decline it. That's the other thing here, Michael. There's nothing in the clause that says that the person itself has the option or any like legal action that they could just say, no, I don't want to take this. It's just straight up enforcing it.
I guess it doesn't actually state that they still have the right to refuse.
Yeah, exactly. So this is already types like, fuck.
Indeed. Fuck.
Like, if anything, a lot of companies will already like be okay with you taking like gig or side work already. That's perfectly fine. So as long as you're not like double dipping on benefits. But once you're doing that, other companies will see that worker as disingenuous to working for a singular company now. Because now in this case, you're not in this case stealing the benefits that in this case you're not just also stealing their money that they put into your insurance. You're also stealing the other company's money from their insurance as well. That is the way how I would see it as like a company owner.
Who cares about company loyalty? Okay.
Well, obviously no one does, but obviously it doesn't stop them from saying, no, we're just going to terminate you because you're working at another job. While at the same time that you are, in this case, currently employed to us. And who's to say, too, that the other side also sees that, too, and they will also terminate your work, and now you're just jobless again.
I'd say prove it.
They do. The information is public, Michael. I hope you know, too. You can say prove it. They will.
Then they better.
And what are you going to do if they're right?
Well, then they're right. I don't know what to tell you. They proved it.
He's not even denying it.
He's not denying it. He's
I'll deny it until they prove it. The second they prove it, I can't deny it.
When you say prove it, what he really wants is, to show him that you're right, to show him that you can do it. I don't get it, man. He doesn't lose here in this situation.
Technically, sure.
When
Maybe
you say prove it, you don't lose in this situation.
Yeah, like if they're already about to fire me, all I have to do is say prove it. And then they have to go through the whole ordeal to prove it. And then once they prove it, I still get fired. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
I guess too, but I guess now you get the incentive. Now you have to pay for legal court fees as well.
What?
That's fine.
But outside of that, I don't know.
I'll represent myself.
Deal.
Damn,
That's not.
this man
That's
knows
not
the law.
the. Don't worry. They're not gonna make you pay your own court fees. They're gonna make you pay their court fees as well. Damn.
That's how I feel.
I excuse myself from that. Not
Yeah.
associated with what came out of my mic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well. Well.
That's good.
Like I said,
sorry.
this
Yeah,
bottle of,
dude.
for people context at home too, I'm currently drinking a bottle of soju. I've already drank it through half of this bottle here, and I feel livid right now just trying to like wrap my head around this shit here.
No wonder this motherfucker was slurring.
Yeah,
Yes, I
sure.
was. And like I said, I apologize to everybody else here that does have to hear my slurs here, but regardless, I have to do this just because of how fucking insane this whole situation is.
So
And it's-
insane he is drinking.
Yeah, man's not even affected by this, and he's drinking over it.
Yeah. I'm not affected by this, but obviously it's going to affect us one way or the other. It just happens to be our wallet that's going to be affected by this shit. I myself personally won't get affected. Yeah, I myself won't get personally affected by this, but you know, everyone's money will. So that's literally what this is going to happen too. And a lot of people are obviously going to get even more mad. Cost of living is going to keep on going up, boys. That's the only thing going up, not the stocks.
Not unless we destroy the government.
Hey man, I don't want
Seize
FBI.
what
fucking-
is ours.
No, stop! I don't want the FBI crashing down my door, please,
They're not going to. We're not credible threats yet.
man. Wait, hold on there. No, you put us on the watch list already for saying that. God
No,
damn
we're
it.
fine. There's not. We're just talking right now.
Indeed.
Hold on. But I don't know. I want to say like more things, but I feel like I've exhausted out like all types of shit that can be said about this already. Unless you guys have something more to add to this. Probably something to end on a positive note, or who knows.
We don't
I've been
usually
feeling
end on
mostly negative.
positives here.
Well,
I get it
And-
on a positive note. I just ended it on a positive.
okay.
There we go.
God fucking. You know what? Amen to that. Salute.
What?
Bless.
Don't worry. That fucking scream is literally my mental health right now. Just reading that shit.
That's all of
That's
us
not even a
internally
scream,
screaming.
dude.
Yeah. It's all of us internally screaming just
Okay,
because.
fine. That's all of us internally sneezing.
Oh,
This
God.
water is so good.
It just sounds like a scream.
God damn.
Damn it.
It's breaking down.
Everything is fucking breaking down. Oh my god. Oh man.
Yo,
Whoa,
I-
whoa, whoa,
God damn it.
whoa there.
Like I said, I really wish that there was a positive note to end on this, but I am so unsure about this too because it's already like this login was released back in January. It's now 2 days left. 2 days left, depending on which side of the planet you're on. 2 days left until this rolls out in America. And it's just going to be even more like chaotic as this is going to roll out too. You're going to see a lot of news headlines. They're already talking about this shit too, about like how this is going to affect the gig economy one way or the other too. Despite the fact too that maybe the Uber drivers aren't affected by this. But again, who's to say too that that's not like what the people are going to interpret it as?
I agree.
So again, unless the government itself like clearly like either goes back on that shit or even delays it further for revision, this is just going to end terribly for everybody. And obviously, I don't think they truly care. Maybe it's for the best that I think it's better that they don't care, or it's worse that way. I don't know.
All I know is we'll find out in 2 days how this will have a drastic impact on everything we know.
Yeah. Like, I feel like I did a lot of talking for this one too, but obviously this is just because, like, again, I have to be the one to say this because I fucking had to read this shit. God,
Yeah, you don't.
I hate myself for this. And it got to the point too, like, well, where am I at this fucking bar here? I'm like, I believe like 2/3 down from this article, and I just gave up trying to read everything else because it wasn't saying anything else remotely important. There probably was at the later 1/3, and all I'm saying is, why is the law this long? Why did you have to write it this much too?
That
And
makes
for
sense. I mean, it's always going to be long. While Victor and I were working out, I was sitting there reading the legal document, and I was like, but wait, it says this. Wait, what is this?
Yeah, it's
or
like
the whole bill. I was doing that the entire time.
it's like none of this ever made a lick of sense of what it's trying to do. It's like the end of the day too, this law is just has a lot of words. That's it.
Words.
Yeah, it has
Zero
a lot
meaning.
of words, zero meaning, and if anything, everybody is open to interpretation to what this could possibly mean, and that's probably bad. No, wait, no, it's not probably. It is bad here.
Absolutely.
It's
I
prob-
ain't disagree with you for the sake of disagreeing with
Yeah, don't be a fucking contrarian, you asshole.
you.
I
I
don't
disagree
like
with your
you.
statement.
Well, guess what? You're just
just
wrong
don't
then,
like
and
you.
I'm still right, no matter what.
Are you sure about that?
Hell yes, this is the Hotter Trash podcast. I am objectively right. You are all subjectively
But are
wrong.
you objectively wrong, or are you subjectively wrong, or are you subjectively right?
What?
Makes a solid point.
Exactly.
Goddamn.
Brain goes go.
Literally, reading this article actually made my brain go gah. Because, like, oh, God.
That boy
Yes.
really dying over there.
Like,
Help him.
like I said, I hope in this case, a more competent person reads over this, probably finds, like, better points than what we can make here. But if any one of them can find better points in this too, I'd be gladly to probably retract a lot of my statements here too. But until then, this law is bullshit.
I feel that.
Like, I don't know, man. How the fuck are you gonna make a piece of paper or piece of law here that's meant to be everybody should be law or following, and it's going to be federally enforced when nobody can understand what the fuck this means?
Well,
Sure.
it will all get cleared out through lawsuits.
God, that's the worst part about this. That's the only way how we're gonna figure this out is through lawsuits. And law itself, or like lawsuits like this, always take like at least a year or two to like finalize, anyways.
On
God.
average, about 2 years.
God fucking damn! And by that time, everything has already gone to shit, anyways. But until then, oh God. Any one of you has like a more positive note that we can at least end off of? I'm sorry, this episode feels so negative. I would love to wish to for a positive note here, but probably like,
ass, bro.
God damn it, no.
Oh.
You know what? Yeah, Lloyd, post your phone number so people could call you for an ass eating number.
Hell no, bro. They can call 911.
But if anything here, I do at least want to leave off of, again, thank you, Akira Toriyama, for making my childhood. And thank you for the government for giving me this aneurysm.
You gave yourself.
True. I myself am the one that gave me that aneurysm. But it wouldn't have happened if the fucking people in charge made the law better read, or it has some type of legibility to read.
But you could also make the choice of not reading what the law pertains.
But it's content.
Okay, Cloud Chaser.
Yeah, but shut up.
Who isn't?
Shut up, you. If anything, we're not that much clout chasers, anyways. We always like probably
We're
like
not.
beat over the dead horse, anyway, so it won't matter too much. Maybe we'll all fucking die tomorrow. Who fucking knows?
Hey, bro. People are going to hell and heaven. We just don't know who.
That's out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. Realm of possibility. Everything just goes through shit show. B, you, Michael, Loy. We're just gonna be in our lawn chairs and the popcorn, just watching the apocalypse happen.
Oh, yeah. That would be a good show.
I'm gonna go Super Saiyan.
The
Oh,
fall
God.
of the U.S.
Goddamn.
Humanity.
Goddamn. I can't wait for the next internet historian video to cover like whatever type of mess this is gonna
Yeah,
have.
the massive freak out after contract workers had to be considered it full-time employees.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. It's like, oh man.
Clip this.
Yeah. But
You said it
anyways.
first.
But
Four
anyways,
random
guys.
guys on the internet.
4 random guys on the internet. We're talking our
Four
shit.
Sneezing
big
guy in the
guys.
background. And a sneezing guy in the background.
God
My
damn.
brother.
God damn. Boy, I hope in this case you fucking give your brother like some type of like sleeping medication so you have to shut the fuck up.
Nah, dude. This man got some bad allergies. I'm sorry. I don't know what allergies are. Never had them.
He's allergic to bullshit. That's what I can tell you.
I
Dude,
feel
I'm
that.
allergic
I
to
feel that.
bullshit.
I feel that.
But anyways, guys.
I'm allergic.
Hopefully this is at
Allergic.
least a positive note to end on for everybody here. Thank you all for tuning in for today's, or at least this week's podcast. Next week will be, in this case, will probably still be a regular episode, but after that too, I will be out for a job for the week. So we won't
Alrighty.
see there won't be a podcast episode on the 23rd. So
No.
He don't like us. Just
I
say
I
you don't
can't.
like us,
bro.
bro.
Hey, he
I
don't like
can't.
Chad either, bro.
man, I'm so sorry, guys. But it's also for the fact too that like I don't know how this is gonna play out for my future, anyways, or the future of like the next few weeks. But hopefully by then, everybody has a good St. Patty's Day coming up too.
Yeah,
Even though it's not a,
Yeah.
even though it's not an actual proper Irish holiday, but people use it to celebrate anyways.
Mardi Gras.
Let's go.
Let's go. Anyways, thank you all for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Keep that engagement going too. I love to see the money too. We probably are gonna get demonetized for most of our videos anyways.
We're getting paid?
Yo, we're getting paid, bro.
Yo, I
Say
fucking wish
anything.
we did.
Really?
Yo, I fucking wish we did.
The fuck?
This guy was talking about money. Haven't seen
Yeah.
a check yet.
Oh yeah, same
I
here.
haven't seen a single penny.
Don't worry, I haven't
eaten.
either. Anyways, catch you all next week, guys. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
I suck.